Purpose, a caring approach to business.
Welcome, everybody!
Nothing is fixed, forever and ever and ever. It is not fixed. The earth is always shifting, the light is always changing, the sea does not cease to grind down rock. Generations do not cease to be born, and we are responsible for them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises, the light fails. The moment we cease to hold each other, the sea engulfs us, and the light goes out. Words by the ever-thoughtful James Baldwin. Welcome to Pollinating Purpose, a caring approach to business by Pillar Nonprofit Network. I am your host and unofficial dog watcher of every person I know, Mariam Muliji. I also act as the Vice President of Impact, Equity, and Governance, and was previously the Social Enterprise Program Manager and Coach here at Pillar Nonprofit. For those of you who are new here, Pollinating Purpose is a show all about supporting organizations who seek to create social impact through their work. Whether a nonprofit, for-profit, or grassroots organization, you'll learn key considerations to starting or growing your social impact organization in long-term and sustainable ways. Today, we will be chatting with the incredible Prabh Gill. Prabh is a passionate leader, community empowerer, and human rights advocate. His journey in making a positive impact started early and has taken him through various roles where he's had the opportunity to serve, learn, and lead. He has a deep interest and specialization in family law mediation and international human rights. These areas allow him to address critical issues like domestic violence, hate crimes, racism, and crimes against humanity. His work involves actively supporting survivors and advocating for their rights, providing them with legal guidance and support they need to overcome their challenges. As the Executive Director of United Sikhs, a UN-affiliated nonprofit organization, he plays a crucial role in steering the organization towards their mission of aiding communities and upholding human rights. His goal is to continue to make a difference in the lives of those who are marginalized or facing injustice. Prabh believes in the power of community, the importance of standing up for what is right, and the need to provide a voice for those who may feel voiceless. Hi, Prabh.
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining us and having this conversation today.
Yeah, my pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we sort of kind of dive in, can you share a little bit about what community mobilization is? And, for anyone who might not be familiar with the term, what does that mean?
Absolutely. So to me, community mobilization is basically bringing people together, not physically, also, emotionally, mentally, sharing their resilience stories, perhaps getting involved and engaged is basically, I look at it as a wheel actually, right? So a mobile, in a rotation that brings in such a sense of community when we mobilize within the community, right? So I think it's more of a role and a duty of a community to be mobilized, get that wheel going to bring empowerment.
Yeah, and that touches on a really interesting piece that I've never really fully kind of connected with, is that community mobilization isn't always like physically bringing people together. It is that bringing people together, on that sort of ethos level and that values level as well, sort of, connecting all those people together. Amazing. Thank you. So, for someone who is interested in getting involved in community mobilization, where is a good place to start? So, you are with United Sikhs. What are some of the ways that you've gotten involved with community mobilization efforts?
So I would sincerely say, first, we have to find a purpose of the engagement, of the community service. What is our purpose? And it comes from self-reflection, asking yourself a question: what is the purpose of being a human or a human being? Once you find that question, for example, I started at a very young age, at the age of 14, where I found that, what I'm going to do. And my father has been a great inspiration, and more specifically my religion, because it's in my culture, it literally encourages, members to serve the community, well-being, empowerment, nourishing, right? So I started, volunteering at the nursing home at the age of 14. with the elderlies, it really empowered me, inspired me as how the elderlies, the pioneers and roots have contributed within the society. And from that point, I found my purpose, objective. How am I going to get engaged with the community? And that was literally a community service, selfless service. And then I wanted to get involved with the policing and law as how to prevail, for example, human rights, how to prevail, legal remedies and empowerment within the setting. So I would highly recommend, speak to yourself. Why did you want to get engaged? Once you have a purpose, you could start from your surroundings. You don't have to literally go to an organization or say particularly to place. For example, a person walking down the road and holding a bunch of bags of groceries and struggling, right away you see, hey, listen, it is my moral duty to help that person, obviously, help elderly, help your neighbor. So it's willingness to get engaged.
Yeah.
And then you can reach out to your local communities. And honestly, when you have that willingness to serve the community, you will find a connection or a contact.
Yeah.
Right? And I believe that. So there are great communities, organizations out there. For example, Pillar.
Yeah.
Big example, right? Yeah. And there are many others. United Six are there. You can even go to a central library, saying, "Hey, listen, I want to get engaged. How can I help?"
Yeah. I think you touch on two really great points, and one is that when you find people who are value aligned, you're drawn into that community mobilization, right? You're going to places, you're seeking people out who have similar values, and it just kind of it creates avenues to get engaged. But going to your first point about that self-reflection, I think so much around people wanting to get involved is not knowing where to start. And even you just naming, your legal expertise and your legal background, really an individual really understanding, what am I good at? And It can be your job. It can just be like, personality traits, things about you as an individual that you find are strong aspects of yourself, and really leaning into that. Like I remember a couple of years ago, I had a friend in it, and it was during sort of the height of, June 2020, the Black Lives Matter movement, and a friend and I were chatting, and she was like, I just don't know, how I can be genuinely useful. And she's a librarian at like an academic institution, and a big one. And I was like, oh, like you work in the library system. You are able to encourage folks to seek out, like people come to you looking for resources. You can play a role in directing them to resources that aren't just by, white academics. You can send them places. You can bring in resources to the library that are from, a scope of voices rather than just what's traditionally seen in the ivory tower sort of thing. Absolutely. So really understanding, what is the role that I can play? What am I good at? And then leaning into that and understanding how you can contribute to community mobilizing, I think is a really powerful piece.
Yeah, and I also want to add something to it. So normally when we speak about community service, we say that outside of our, home settings. I truly believe that literally everything starts within your home structure, within your family. I would speak to my family members. For example, if our brothers, say my brother or my sister or my father or mother, dealing with a stress, or there's an issue within the domestic settings, how about step up and listen? I'm here to listen. Let's work together. I believe community service is literally, it's beyond the purpose. I would say internal purpose of human being. Right? It's literally making a difference, regardless of the personal relationship, gender, religion, or race. Like literally, here, this is my purpose, and I'm going to serve selflessly.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I'm getting at, and that's where we have to start, I believe.
Yeah, because I also feel like sometimes community, like the sense of community, can be conflated with a social circle, right? And community, if you look at it at what it truly is you don't need to be friends with everyone in community. You don't need to have a deep personal connection to them, but you have to acknowledge that they are a valuable and important part of community. They don't need to just be your friend. You still want to be able to support and connect with them because they're a part of the community, not just because you have a social relationship with them. And that's such a key defining piece of community mobilization. It's not just for people that you have a friendship or a relationship with. It's for people who make up the communities that we are a part of. And those are multifaceted things and multifaceted people.
Well, there you go. So you brought a really good point, human values.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is, right? So that's amazing.
Excellent. Okay. And so, we've talked about community mobilization, and community mobilization is like a well-known and understood thing. Can you talk about what some of the main practices involved in community mobilization are?
Absolutely. So I'll touch upon what I've been practicing, and I highly encourage everyone to actually look into it. First thing first is compassion. So when we talk about compassion, so there's a sympathy, then the next is empathy, and then the passion, and there's a compassion. So sympathy, obviously, you share your emotion with somebody, and then you walk away. Empathy, you share your emotions, and you want to do something about it, right? And then passion, you bring sympathy and empathy together, and it's like, then again, it's mobilization, right? You start rolling that wheel. Now, compassion is selfless.
Right.
It brings all three, forms in one word, compassion, right? So that is very important. So that resonate with the emotions. It comes from the heart. So when you put your heart to something, that will, enshrine, flourish. Number 2 is active listening. Really important.
Yeah.
So when you are there, not to give advice, just listen. That will build a positive relationship, not only individually, but within the community. Often seen that we state, like I've seen many state that I understand or we understand. That is a very heavy word.
Yeah.
Before we mention that, hey, I understand. Literally, do you understand? And how do you do that? By listening, right?
Yeah.
So we're actually just to assure the other side, and listen, I understand, but you don't understand.
Yes. Yeah. It's hard to understand when you don't have those lived experiences that lead to them feeling a particular way, right? Yeah.
Right. And then above all, human values. I think human values is the basic root of bringing empowerment, enlightenment, and peace. Because when we talk about human values, it becomes a moral duty. And then, so I'm not really bound within a family. So when I step out, I consider others my family now.
Right.
I have a moral duty as a human. So then before stating something, say, I understand, I would be putting my foot in the shoe and feel their pain.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, what if this was me? How would I have taken care of? You don't have to necessarily give the person a solution or advice. Just be there, listen, and feel the emotion and resonate yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And I think these 3 pillars are vital when we speak about practices. And once you start practicing these, other will come together, right?
Yeah.
And then I call it collation of human being. And the reason I use human being a lot, have you ever heard of a dog being or cat being or horse being? Right?
I don't think in that phrasing. So yeah, curious to know more.
Human being?
Well, human being, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So why we say human being?
Right.
Because human has the capacity and capability to rule over
Gotcha. Yeah.
the I would say the universe. So here's the thing: other species and even the plants and animals, they actually we're not saying we're actually dominating, but we're actually assisting them or guiding them. They look upon us. So human has a lot of responsibility, not only just towards the human mankind, is towards others too, right?
Right.
So it's being learning, so being.
Right.
So humans keep evolving, innovating into new things. That's like a human being, right?
Yeah.
It's really important to understand those human values, compassion, active listening. That's what gets us to a peaceful, empowering community.
Yeah, I think that, those tenets of, collecting, gathering, and then that active listening piece. And I'm reminded of a good friend, Sarah May. Sarah May Chitty is an incredible community member here in London, but she and I were having a conversation once around, the difference between listening and hearing, and how hearing really is this other element of, not just listening to respond, which can kind of be, what that listening piece is, listening with defensiveness or not even necessarily defensiveness, but like listening to react versus just hearing and taking it in so that there's a level of understanding. And then you can build that compassion piece, right? So, gathering the active listening, truly understanding what the needs are, and then, bringing that coalition together to actually do something about it are elements of the community mobilization practice, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, excellent. And, thinking about community mobilization and thinking about, a lot of the folks who are listening are interested in social enterprise and, working towards operating a business in a way that has impact as its foundational practice. So how does community mobilization support the goals of social enterprise?
So it brings in the innovation. So when you bring diverse ideas or cultures, or I would say unique stories or experiences together within an organization. So what you're doing is you're actually building a leadership model. And what I've been practicing within my organization, and even personally as well, I call it shared leadership. I'm in leadership right now, and I highly practice this model because what it does actually, it distributes roles. It gives acknowledgement, values your allies, your partners, and also the worker within the organization. When you have this such great value within the organization, whether it's nonprofit, charity, or a business. So what you're doing now, that business does not just become, I would say, a dry field or just come to work kind of deal. It becomes a temple for people. Now the workers or the volunteers or the organizer would want to come to work.
Yeah.
So what happens now, it's just not the organization growing, it's the person within the organization growing.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's the other way around. When the person grows, the organization grows. That can only happen when we bring in shared leadership.
Right.
So it's a community mobilization, when you bring people together, when we put value in those folks and say, hey, listen, and sometimes we talk about experiences. We talk about education. But I look at the other way around, the education, there's a difference between education and information. What we have from schooling, it could, people have diplomas, degrees, or even PhD holders. That's information, not necessarily education. And how do you convert that information into education? When you have a mindset of making a difference and adapting as a way of life, it makes a big difference. And when an organization has a mission to do that, with the community mobilization, like I would say, it's a great a coalition. You're going to empower not only the organization, also the community, right? Surrounding areas. It's going to send a bigger message nationally and internationally. And the reason I'm saying it with the confidence that with the United States, we have seen that.
Right.
So within the United States organization, it's international, and the workers are leaders. The volunteers are leaders.
Right. Yeah.
And there's no status quo.
Right. Yeah. I think it goes back to that idea of, lived experience is the lived expertise, right? You have an understanding of the world, as we all do, based off of the experiences that we have. And, someone who has an academic understanding of a problem or, a crisis or a situation, it is an academic understanding and that's useful, but academic understanding doesn't always translate into what's happening in community and is being experienced by folks. So being able to bring in the lived expertise that is gained through lived experience is such a vital piece of that, because it's really powerful and an integral knowledge that is a part of understanding and creating a solution.
Right. Well, you brought a really good point. So information would, guide you as how to analyze the issue. Mm-hmm. But the education will guide you as how to understand the community needs and then resolve that issue, right? So there's a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so kind of leading from this, how does knowledge sharing play a role in the process of community mobilization?
I believe that's one of the vital aspects of it, right? It creates, I would say, a legacy. Yeah. When I say legacy, for example, we all, growing by hearing, the stories of leaders, right? So that's absolutely sharing knowledge, right? It creates resilience. So sometimes when we are successful, it's not because of, we took initiative. Mm-hmm. It's because we read someplace or we read a history or a piece of article saying this individual has done this and I'm going to follow this legacy, right? So I believe that when we share our stories and information or, education, it creates a unified environment, a willingness that, we're sharing our experiences, our even though our obstacles. Say I had to, had difficulties, doing this. And now when I share these difficulties with you, now you're actually seeking a solution.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about just stories itself, it brings out the resolutions. So it's really important, I believe.
Yeah, I think about the whole of community response that's happening right now in the City of London and, bringing together those, I think it's the 200 organizations who all have different lenses of understanding and knowledge and information to then understand how can we develop a solution that is, it won't be perfect because it never will be and it will always need to be iterative and adapted, but, the closest to a solution that really serves the needs of communities. And we need all of those different perspectives, right? And then, going back to that piece around community mobilization is gathering, not just physically.
Right.
Think about, the ways in which social media has played a role, or just the digital environment, right? Of ways the folks who are organizing in different places around the world and how it's influenced the ways that other people organize, because they can see what's been working and they can share what's been working versus what hasn't been successful, and people can adapt and respond in those ways. I think, we also chatted previously around that ripple effect, right?
Right. Yes,
even just our
absolutely.
own communities and in our own social circles, being able to have information and understanding and be able to share that, it might influence someone to think a little bit differently, and then they can then share that out, and that kind of spreads around, and we can build that community compassion versus just living with ourselves and ending with ourselves. We want it to spread out.
Yep.
It's that legacy piece again around how can it exist beyond just us.
Right. It just so it puts value within a community, right? When we bring in other organizations and share experiences, right? So it shows that, hey, listen, we want to work in a collaboration.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And that really brings in not only a sense of community, a sense of pride as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's really important as being Canadians, as being Londoners, and above all, we need to focus on being human. Mm-hmm. See through a line, right? And then I would say the community service, it's selfless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we need to keep I would say multiplying that factor. Mm-hmm. Right, so more leaders we promote or create within the organizational structure, that those leaders will make a difference, and I call it legacy, which is really important. And I think I am blessed and I'm honored to be part of United Six. And I think that the United Six platform has been a platform of leadership, compassion, and community service.
Yeah. And I think, that piece around bringing everyone together also includes the communities that you're trying to serve. So their voices are also, not only representative, but are present to being able to build that solution.
Yep.
Okay, so, you mentioned United Sikhs and the work that you're doing. Where, as we sort of wrap up the conversation, where can folks find out more information about the work that you do, but also the work of United Sikhs, and if they're wanting to get involved, how can they do that?
So, to find out more about United Six, so it's united6.org. That's the website, and we have a location or chapter in London, so I can be contacted anytime. As I mentioned before, we spoke about community service. So we also do mental health campaign. It's called Umeed Helpline. So Umeed stands for hope. I personally am acting as my role is executive director, a national executive director, legal operation compliance, and I'm also a human rights counsel working in affiliation with the United Nations. So our role is actually empower the community as a whole, regardless of religion, gender, and race. And also you can visit social media, Facebook, Instagram, and I'm more than happy to give my email address. Folks can reach out to me directly if anyone wants to get involved with human rights work, legal work, because we do have a legal firm within the organization. We provide pro bono services, more specifically to the vulnerable and marginalized and elderlies. And my direct email is Prabh, Prabh, Gill, Gill, @live.ca. And I would highly recommend everyone, doesn't matter what organization you want to serve or work with, go for it. Because to me, that's my fuel.
Right.
I live off of it, right? So it's really important to, put a compassionate step forward towards the community. Right? So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Prabh. It's been a delight. Thank you for being here.
Well, my pleasure. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you once again to Prabh for joining us. If you'd like to learn more about Pillar Nonprofit Network and the work that we do at this organization, you can head on over to pillarnonprofit.ca. There you can find out a little bit more about our social enterprise programming and how we might be able to support the work that you're doing. If you'd like to learn more about United Sikhs, you can visit unitedsikhs.org. So that is UNITEDSIKHS.org. And as Prabh mentioned, you're welcome to email him directly, and his email is prabhgill@live.ca. So that is PRABHGILL@live.ca. Once again, I am your host, your guide, your business bud, Mariam Walichi, and this has been Pollinating Purpose, a caring approach to business. Thank you for joining along for the ride. I'm happy that you're here.